Good morning and welcome to another episode of Scruffy's Guide to Valheim. This is an episode which is going to focus largely on the Black Forest, what you can find there, what you can eat, what will try and eat you, what to fight, what to dig up and what to chop down. So yeah, let's cover all of that jazz straight away now. Right, well the first thing to notice about the Black Forest is that these little greylings stop being called greylings. Let's just get rid of him. And instead look like these rather larger and slightly more intimidating looking grey dwarves. They are larger and they are slightly more intimidating, but they don't do a lot of damage and you can still beat them up fairly easily. As long as you remember to block, and that is always a rule whenever dealing with anything which has got stars by its name. I see, I got that wrong and it took me 7 points of damage to deal with that. But flint axe, no real problem. The only problem is when you get swamped. So anyway, grey dwarves, they drop wood, they drop stone, and they drop grey dwarf eyes. Now, you are going to need some grey dwarf eyes, but just not yet. They are one of the ingredients for portals, which kind of happens a little bit later on once you've got access to more stone and the requirement to go further. So anyway, here we are on the border of the Black Forest. We've just introduced grey dwarves, which are the replacement to the greylings. These are the trees which replace these trees. So we've got fir trees and we've got pine trees. These are fir trees. They are kind of fat and brown looking, sort of light brown. Let's just find you a pine tree, which is the other one. There you go, there's one ahead. This is a pine tree. Okay, so there's fir and pine. Now the good thing about pine, let's just chop this down, which you can just about do with a flint axe. This will give you a new type of ingredient for the first time ever in the game once it's fallen down, and that is core wood. And why core wood is good is because it allows you to make longer kind of scaffolding type poles. So I'll just quickly show you what, there we go. Loads of stuff. Also important apparently in the recipes for a new bow, which we'll have to check out in a little bit. We can't do anything with that before we go back to a crafting centre, but you want to rewind this video and pause it. Picking up core wood just unlocked a whole boatload of stuff. So that's that. It is quite heavy though, so you can't carry a lot of it around. Just bear that in mind. Next, here we have copper. Now you want to move out of the Stone Age and into the Bronze Age as soon as you possibly can, because the improvement to weapons and armour is quite substantial. So this is what copper deposit looks like. It basically looks like a rock. When the sun's out, it's got some kind of shiny reflective veins. And the other helpful thing is that when you are close enough, it does actually identify as a copper deposit. And you just take out your pickaxe, which you've made once you've killed that first boss and got his antlers, and just beat the crap out of it. Now, as you will expect, it's pretty heavy stuff. So this becomes a bit of a traumatic time, because you'll end up having to run back and forwards with all these very heavy things, because one single piece of copper ore is 10, and our carry limit at the moment is 300. So if you're carrying 30, then you can't carry any other equipment. It's as simple as that. So that's what copper looks like. The other side of the bronze story is tin. You combine tin and copper together, and that's how you make bronze. So I'm going to go and show you where the tin is. Here we are down at the coast, and the coast in the Black Forest is where you are going to find your tin deposits. They basically look a bit like a slightly damp, slightly shiny rock. So there's one here, there's another one here, whereas that is actually a shiny, damp rock. So you kind of see the difference. It's sort of less green on the tin. And you just whack away, you know, doesn't take very long. And you can knock these to death, and I think you get 2 or 3 bits of tin for each one of these. So, oh, 4, there you go, that was good. And so now you've got tin ore and copper ore. You need to smelt those into actual bars. And once you've got the bars, you need to smack them together and turn them into bronze. So there's a couple of extra bits of process to do, which we will talk you through when we get back to the base, because there's a few things that we're going to need to build. A couple of other things to make note of at this stage before we go anywhere else. You see buildings like that, they are normally surrounded by grey dwarves of one type or another. There are a couple of different types of grey dwarfs. There's your standard grey dwarf, who these guys are. They run up, they throw bricks, then they come over and try and punch you. They're not really a big deal. There are grey dwarf brutes who are bigger and do a lot more damage. I would basically try and avoid them wherever possible. Don't let them punch you, because that will hurt a lot. But actually, probably the most threatening to you at this point in the game are the grey dwarf Shamen. Ooh, running out of stamina. When you run out of stamina, just back away slowly for a bit. Because the grey dwarf Shamen, they do an attack which is like a kind of a cone of poisonous death in a little area in front of them, and they also do a kind of a heal in a big area around them. So if you're fighting, like I was just fighting there, a group, and there was a Shaman amongst them, then that might become somewhat more problematic. So just be aware of that. And the other thing to also be aware of, if you're running away, don't run out of stamina, because that will get you killed. Other threats which exist in the Black Forest, there are two real primary threats. One of them is skeletons, which you'll find generally guarding barrows and inside barrows, and I will show you some of those when we find some. But this is a troll cave. No troll. If you find a troll at the point in the game when you're wearing leather armour and using flint weapons, the appropriate response is to run. Don't even bother. It's a waste of time. You'll get killed in one hit if it does actually hit you. It's more likely to throw a rock at you, and that will equally probably hit you. Food in the Black Forest is available in a number of different ways, and there are also some other plants which you can't directly eat, but which do lead on to some decent recipes for other things to look out for. So just as in the meadow section, you can find on the ground red mushrooms. They kind of stand out slightly worse in the darkness, so it's a bit of a running along and just go, oh, mushroom. So that's fine. If you see them, pick them. These little fellas here, they're blueberries. So with blueberries, obviously you can just eat them. They're very similar to raspberries. Then there are a couple of other things, which I will just run off and show you. Hold on. Here in front of us is the humble thistle. Now, I don't know whether they did this on purpose, but thistles kind of glow in the dark. So at dusk and in the night time, thistles are really easier to find and spot. That's probably a good thing, because thistles are basically the most important plant in the entire game, because they form part of stamina potion. No, not stamina potions. They certainly form part of anti-poison potions, and they are also important ingredient in various food items. So there's a lot of uses for a thistle. The elusive red mushrooms I was telling you about. Look at that. Seriously. Invisibility mushroom. And there's another one. Ridiculous. So yeah, they're really kind of, if you find them, eat them. They're great. Oh, actually don't eat them. Save them, because you can combine them with something else, which I've just found over here. This is carrot seeds. Okay, so when you get a cultivating tool, which happens once you've got some access to a bit of metal, Then you can start planting those carrot seeds, and you can kind of get a cycle going where you'll never ever run out of carrots. And then you can blend those carrots together with the red mushrooms to make carrot soup. And that is generally considered to be an excellent form of food. Now the other final type of food that you can find in the Black Forest, aside from the occasional pig and deer, is contained within structures which look like this. This here is a burial chamber or barrow or something along those lines. It's populated with skeletons, which can be a bit of a pickle. You really need to know how to block, and parry. Until such time as you've got slightly better equipment, they are a bit tricky. Make sure you don't run out of stamina when you're down there, because you'll then be going, I can't block or do anything, and they will kill you. But in these caves there are yellow mushrooms, and they kind of light the way, but as you pick them up they're useful too. So that's the other food source. Final thing to consider, which is a bit difficult to show, but I will attempt to do that. Inside these barrows, along with the skeletons, there are these things called cores, forge cores. There's one with a bow here. Now this is going to be a bit tricky to see because it's dark. Normally speaking, if you wanted to, if you don't like that, you could hold a torch like that, right? But you can't really do any damage with a torch particularly. I mean, it's kind of improvised club. It's going to break the torch really, really quickly. I suppose the skeleton is on fire, so it's sort of a viable option. But it might be easier. In fact, I just find it easier just to fight in the dark. It just doesn't show up very well on a YouTube video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through this place in the dark and just show you when I get to the core room. And you'll know what I mean at that point. That was easy. So this is basically a kind of a burial room, which you find in these here burial chambers. So it's got a chest in there, which is, I mean, that's kind of semi-useful. We've got some arrows which got flint tips, so they do more damage than the ones I'm currently using. However, you can make them very easily. Feathers are always useful. You're never going to want to run out of feathers because that's how you make all of the arrows. So that's also useful. And you can make the next level of bow too, so worth picking up feathers. And treasure. Now, I would recommend at the beginning of this game that you collect as much treasure as you possibly can, but then stop once you've got a chest full of gems. And I'll explain more about that later. In the meantime, this is what you're looking for. A surtling core. You need 10 of these, right? So basically, the first trip you come to the Black Forest, before you head home, you really need 10 of these because this is the thing you need to build the smelter and the charcoal furnace, which you're going to need in order to get yourself out of the Stone Age and into the Bronze Age. Okay? I will see you back at home. My final thought for the Black Forest is you do need an awful lot of copper and an awful lot of tin, so it might be worth moving your base nearer to the Black Forest and building all your smelting equipment somewhere nearby. But if you do choose to do that, it's a perfectly valid strategy. Do be aware that you will need to build some proper fences, and it will regularly be attacked in the evenings when you're sort of in there. So that's gonna, I mean, it might add more fun to the game because you'll be fighting more, or you might want a more mellow experience, in which case you can just keep running back and forth. And that might be cool too. It's up to you. It's your time and your enjoyment, so do whichever you prefer. So I'm going to sign off now, and I'm going to bring you the next episode, which will be about the various extensions you need to quickly make in your base to enable you to get into the Bronze Age fully, so you can end up looking like this dude down here in front of you. Till then, if you're finding these guys useful, then please leave a comment, hit the like button, and if you want to make sure you're not going to miss the next one, then remember to subscribe to the channel. Cheers now, bye bye.